Hello, everyone. Tonight we are not in a rush, not checking our phones, not pretending everything's fine. We're just here, sitting, breathing. Maybe in a quiet room. Maybe under the kind of soft light that makes you feel safe. And maybe, just maybe, you need this story tonight as much as I need to tell it. Right now, in my apartment, the room is still dressed for a party that never happened. There's a cake, untouched. Its frosting slightly melting under 3 slow-burning candles. A single balloon floats above a chair no one sat in. And music. The playlist I made for tonight. It's still queued up. Still waiting. I planned it all. I really did. Down to the minute. Down to the seat placements. Down to the little stupid sparkler candle I knew he'd pretend not to like, but would secretly smile about. And yet, he never came. Or rather, he did. Just not here, not to me. Not to the woman who spent 3 months trying to make him feel seen. So before we go further, before we unravel what happened, please, if you feel something here, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, only if you truly want to stay for stories like this. No pressure. And I'd love to know, where are you watching from tonight? What time is it where you are? Because where I am, it's the kind of night that doesn't feel like a night at all. It feels like a pause, like something cracked, and time is just standing around, staring at the pieces. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan, for that soft hum in the background. And let's begin our journey tonight. I started planning his birthday in July. His actual birthday? October 3rd. Yeah, I know, 3 months ahead. I made a spreadsheet, not because I had to, but because I wanted to get everything just right. The gift, the dinner, the people he actually liked, the ones who wouldn't make it awkward, the ones who knew how hard he worked and would celebrate him properly. I even booked a private table at that steakhouse he mentioned once. Only once. But I remembered. I had it timed out like clockwork. He'd come home from work. I'd hand him his favorite beer while he changed. Then I'd accidentally suggest that we just grab takeout. And when he'd agree, pretending not to notice I was lying. Boom. Surprise party. I even made sure his mom wouldn't text him that morning and ruin it. I coordinated his coworkers to make sure no one else made plans. It was obsessive, maybe. But when you love someone, and you feel them slipping, you try harder, even if you won't admit to yourself that's what you're doing. I told myself I was just being thoughtful, that this was normal, that people in love go the extra mile. And yet, somewhere in me, I think I knew I was trying to patch something I couldn't name. Like catching water in my hands, pretending I wasn't already soaked. I spent evenings looking at cake designs, custom playlists, even candle scents. Did you know you can order candles that smell like cedarwood and bourbon? He once said that reminded him of his dad. So I found one, just for him. I thought, if I could just line up every star, every moment, every song, he'd see it, see me, and whatever it was between us that had gone dim would light back up again. But here's what I didn't realize then. You can plan everything, and still, be planning for someone who's already left. The first sign? It was small. So small I could almost laugh at how hard I tried to ignore it. He stopped texting me goodnight. At first, I didn't even notice. 1 night turned into 2, then 3, then a full week of him just forgetting. And when I finally said, "Hey, did you fall asleep again last night?" He smiled, half-heartedly, said work was crazy, said he passed out with his phone in his hand. I nodded, told him it was okay, lied. Because that's what you do when you want something to stay normal. You lie to yourself first. The next sign? He started staying late at the office. Not once, not twice, but nearly every night. Always with the same explanation. Big pitch. Client deadline. Can't leave early, it's bad optics. Optics. As if love and commitment were PR games. And then, there were the mentions. The casual ones. Oh, Amber and I crushed it today. Amber had this great idea for the pitch. Amber said the funniest thing in the break room. Amber, his work wife. I laughed at that term once, when he first used it. I said, "Cute. You've got a little office marriage." And he smiled like it was harmless, like it meant nothing. But over time, her name became a refrain, a gentle rhythm behind every story, every moment I wasn't a part of. And I told myself, she's just a coworker. He's just stressed. He comes home to me. That's what matters. But there's a moment when something shifts. You don't see it all at once. It's like a curtain slowly falling. You start sitting across from someone who laughs, but not with you, who touches their phone at dinner, but not to answer you, who tells you, "I'm just tired." But you know the exhaustion isn't physical. It's emotional. It's relational. It's about you. But it never includes you. That was the third week of September. I kept planning, kept decorating the lie. Because admitting the truth, that would have meant tearing it all down. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. The first time I met Amber, I wasn't ready. He'd casually mentioned that she might join us for a drink. "Just for a bit," he said, "since she's already downtown." I didn't object, because if I did, it would look like jealousy. And I wasn't jealous. I was curious, nervous, maybe a little afraid. She walked in wearing a tailored gray blazer over a satin camisole. Her heels clicked confidently against the bar floor, hair swept back, lipstick perfect. And when she saw him, her face lit up, like he was the only person in the room. I watched them hug. A little too close, a little too long, like a habit. She turned to me with the kind of smile women reserve for other women. Polite, measured, just enough warmth to not seem cold. Just enough distance to say, "I know who I am to him." We talked. Well, she talked. She told me how brilliant he was at work, how he'd carried the team, how they'd been through it together these past few months. And he just sat there, smiling, watching her like she was telling a story he already knew the ending to. Every time I tried to join in, the flow broke. I was the outsider at my own table, like I'd wandered into someone else's inside joke. At one point, she touched his arm, just lightly, while laughing at some memory I wasn't part of. And my stomach twisted. That was the moment. Not when she walked in. Not when she praised him. But when I saw her touch him like it was second nature. Like she had permission. And he didn't flinch. Didn't pull away. Didn't even glance at me. I smiled. Tight. Told them I had an early morning and left first. He didn't follow. He texted later. "Hope you got home safe." And I stared at that heart emoji for 5 minutes, wondering if it was meant to soften something he already knew had cracked. That night, I lay in bed, replaying her laugh. The way he leaned in when she spoke. The comfort. The ease. And I whispered to myself, he wouldn't. He couldn't. Right? The week before his birthday felt like walking on splintered glass. Everything looked intact from a distance, but underneath? Cracks. He was distracted, constantly checking his phone, smiling at texts he never shared with me. "Just work stuff," he'd say. "Amber again?" I asked once, lightly. He laughed. Too quickly. "Yeah, she's hilarious. You'd like her if you really got to know her." I almost said, "I did get to know her. That was the problem." But I didn't. I nodded. Laughed. Pretended it didn't sting. I threw myself into the final party prep. I ordered the bourbon-scented candle. Picked up the cake. Chocolate hazelnut mousse, his favorite. Wrapped his gift. A vintage watch he once pointed at in a shop window and said, "Maybe one day." I made it that day. Every night after he fell asleep, or pretended to, I'd slip out of bed and recheck every detail. Guest list, timing, decor. I even made a tiny booklet of photos from our last 5 birthdays together. It ended with a blank page labeled "Tonight." That page, it haunts me now. He didn't notice the decorations piling up in the hallway closet, didn't ask why I kept whispering into my phone in the kitchen, coordinating people he used to laugh with. Didn't even ask why I looked tired in the mornings. Because I was. Not just from planning, from pretending. Pretending not to feel the shift in his tone. The emotional absences, the delayed replies, the lukewarm kisses. He still said, "I love you." But it started to feel like punctuation, just something to close the sentence, not something he felt anymore. And I kept thinking, maybe after the party, things will go back to normal. Maybe he's just overwhelmed. Maybe he's lost in his head and needs reminding that I'm still here. So I polished every ribbon, rechecked every RSVP, told myself this party was more than a party. It was a chance to fix what we weren't talking about. But you can't celebrate your way out of loneliness. You can't wrap silence in a bow and expect it to open into joy. And still, I believed. Because sometimes hope isn't soft. It's desperate. It claws. And I held on. October 3rd. His birthday. I woke up before the sun, heart pounding with a strange mix of excitement and dread. You know that feeling when something big is supposed to happen, and part of you believes it will, while another part braces for the crash? That was me. The apartment smelled like vanilla bean in anticipation. I lit the special candle, the one that smelled like bourbon and worn leather. Let it burn slowly in the corner of the room. I'd already made the call to the restaurant the night before. Confirmed the reservation. Private booth. Set menu. Special dessert with a sparkler. I laid out his favorite sweater on the bed. A soft gray one that brought out the green in his eyes. Beside it, a handwritten note. "Can't wait to celebrate you tonight. Love, always." I set my phone on the counter. Volume up. Waiting for the first ping of his voice. Nothing. So I texted him. "Happy birthday. Love heart. Big night ahead. Can't wait to see your face." No reply. But it was early. I told myself he'd see it once he parked at work. I poured coffee. Made toast, reread my own text like it was a spell that could summon a better day. By 10 a.m., still nothing. At noon, I sent another message. "Hope your morning's going okay. Let me know when you take a break." Still nothing. By 2 p.m., I was pacing. Not dramatic pacing, just drifting from room to room, straightening things that didn't need straightening, rechecking the time, refreshing his location. He was still at the office, supposedly, but even that felt hollow. I told myself he was swamped, that maybe they were surprising him at work, that maybe Amber had organized something light, harmless. That word didn't sit well. By 4 p.m., I was supposed to be dressing up. Instead, I was staring at my closet, wondering what outfit says, "I planned this because I love you," instead of, "I'm afraid you're slipping away." I chose the dress he once said made me look like a dream. That comment was from 2 birthdays ago. I curled my hair, fixed my eyeliner twice, sat by the window like a woman waiting for her sailor to return from sea. At 5:15, I texted again. "Running late? Let me know so I can adjust the reservation." Silence. And that's when the first real thought hit. The one that lands like ice on the spine. He's not coming. I blinked it away, laughed even, shook my head like I could scatter the idea. But deep down, I already knew. I waited. God, I waited. By 6 p.m., the reservation was hanging by a thread. The hostess called, soft voice, apologetic. "Would you still like to hold the table, ma'am?" I hesitated, then lied. "Yes, he's just caught in traffic. We'll be there soon." I put on my shoes, grabbed my bag, stood at the door with my keys in hand. And still, no message. No, "I'm sorry." No, "running late." Not even a thumbs-up emoji, just silence. And silence on a day like that? It's not neutral, it's sharp. It cuts deeper than any words could. I opened the location app again. My thumb hovered. I knew it would only make things worse. But I tapped anyway, still downtown, still at work. But something about the map felt off. The pin wasn't near his office. It was a few blocks away, near that jazz bar on 8th. The one we passed once, and he said, "Too pretentious, not my vibe." But tonight? It was. I stared at the screen, heart thudding. Zoomed in. Watched the little circle glow on the corner of 8th and Main. He was there, not here, not replying, not even trying. At 6:35, the restaurant released our table. I didn't call, didn't text again. I just sat, still dressed up, full face of makeup, hair curled like it was still holding on to the fantasy. Then, I laughed. Not a happy laugh. Not even a bitter one. Just that hollow laugh you let out when your body doesn't know what else to do. It echoed in the quiet room, bouncing off the candles that were now drooping with heat. The cake sat untouched. The playlist never started. Everything I had prepared. Waiting, stupidly, painfully waiting. And I realized then, it wasn't just that he forgot. It wasn't just that he was with someone else. It was that he didn't even think to lie. He didn't think it was necessary, because somewhere along the way, I stopped being the one he wanted to impress, to reassure, to show up for. I took off my heels, turned off the candle, stood in the living room I had turned into a shrine of celebration, and felt utterly invisible. At 7:10, I stood in front of the restaurant where we were supposed to celebrate. Not because I thought he'd show, but because I needed to face it. I needed to see the place, the table, the empty seat across from mine. I told the hostess I'd just wait at the bar. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. The champagne I ordered tasted like dust. The flute left condensation rings on the napkin. Little reminders that something had once been there. Just like me. Couples laughed around me. Birthdays were sung. Waiters carried cakes to tables with sparklers. One of them looked exactly like the one I ordered. I turned away. He still hadn't texted. Not a single word. His phone could have been dead. He could have been in a meeting. He could have been... But he wasn't. He was at the jazz bar, so I left. Quietly. No dramatics. Just me, in my nicest dress, walking out into the night with the weight of something that was once beautiful. In the car, my hands trembled. Not from anger. From restraint. I pulled out my phone, tapped the location app again. Still there. He hadn't moved. The jazz bar on 8th was dimly lit from the outside. The kind of place that romanticizes darkness. Tiny candlelights on each table. Music spilling out like a secret. I parked across the street. Told myself I wouldn't go in. I just wanted to know. To see. Through the window, I scanned the room. And there he was. Not alone. Amber sat across from him. Her back was to me. But I could tell it was her. The way she tilted her head. The way she laughed. That familiar, crisp, calculated laugh. He was smiling. Not the polite smile he gave at home. The real one. The one that showed teeth. The one that crinkled the corners of his eyes. On the table between them, a small cake. Single candle. She lit it. He blew it out. They clinked glasses. And for a second, he looked so happy, so free, that it took my breath away. Not because I was happy for him, but because I realized that smile, it used to be mine. I didn't go in. I didn't knock on the glass or storm across the street or demand an explanation. I just sat there, watching, the kind of stillness that doesn't come from peace, but from numbness. That eerie, detached quiet your mind goes to when your heart realizes it's too late. They looked like a couple, not in any big, dramatic way, but in the soft ways. The way her hand stayed near his when she reached for her drink. The way he leaned in like he already knew her scent. The way their bodies curved toward each other without thinking. No space between them. Not really. I turned off the car, just sat in silence, listening to the hum of the engine cooling down, the occasional clink of glass through the window, and the faint laughter that had once lived in my home. My hands were still in my lap, perfectly folded. I didn't cry. Not then. Tears need a crack to escape through, and I was sealed up tight. There was this moment, this surreal, impossible moment, where I actually smiled. Not because I was okay, but because I had done everything, all the planning, all the caring, all the quiet sacrifices, and somehow, I still wasn't enough. And weirdly, that clarity, it's a kind of freedom. When you realize someone didn't forget you, they just chose someone else. You stop trying to fix it. You stop blaming yourself. You stop holding your breath for a message that will never come. I looked at the clock, 7:46, his birthday, and he was exactly where he wanted to be. So I started the car. Not to leave. Not yet. But because I needed to feel the engine rumble, something real, something that obeyed when I turned the key. Inside the bar, Amber placed something in front of him, a card. He opened it. He laughed, touched his chest like she'd said something touching. And that's when the tears finally came. Not loud, not messy, just one, running slow down my cheek, cutting through foundation I had carefully applied earlier when I still believed this night would be mine. I didn't wipe it away, I let it fall. Because if nothing else, I deserved to feel it. Fully, completely, without apology. When I got home, everything was exactly where I left it. Which made it worse. The candles were still there, melted down to waxy stumps. The cake sat untouched on the counter, its frosting now glossy from the room's heat. And the playlist had finally stopped. The silence was deafening. I didn't turn on the lights, didn't take off my shoes. I just walked in and stood there, in the middle of a celebration that never happened. I looked around at what I had built, what I had crafted, this carefully orchestrated moment of love. And all it did was mock me. I stepped closer to the table, staring at the tiny folded card I had written to go with his gift. It read, "To the man who reminds me every day why love is worth the effort." I picked it up, held it for a moment, then dropped it. The sound it made? So light. Too light for what it carried. I walked into the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. Still dressed up. Still trying to look like someone worth choosing. Mascara smudged under my eyes. Lipstick faded. A shadow of the woman who woke up that morning full of hope. And for the first time in a long time, I really looked at myself. Not like an accessory to someone else's story, but like a person. A whole one. Who had given everything and been given crumbs in return. I didn't text him. Didn't call. Didn't send a single, "Where are you?" Because I knew. And more than that, I was done begging for answers I already had. At 9:03, the front door opened. I didn't move, just listened. He stepped in quietly. Too quietly, like someone who knows they don't have the right to make noise anymore. I heard him pause, probably saw the candles, the cake, the balloon that had started to sag. Then, "Babe?" That one word, soft, guilty, cautious. I didn't answer. I just stood in the hallway, back against the wall, hands folded again. And when he finally turned the corner and saw me, we both froze. He looked like he wanted to say 100 things. Apologies, excuses, lies. Instead, he said, "I didn't mean to," but I stopped him, because no sentence that begins with that phrase has ever ended in anything but pain. We stood there. Him, still in the blazer he probably wore to the bar, face slightly flushed, the faintest trace of candlelight still in his eyes. Me, still in the dress, hair now falling out of its curl, mascara like ink stains beneath my eyes. Neither of us moved. There was something heavy in the air, not tension, not even anger, just finality. He stepped forward, slowly, like someone approaching a wounded animal. "I know how this looks," he began. That sentence. I could have laughed, but instead I said nothing. Because what was the point? He gestured toward the table. "You did all this?" I nodded. Once. Because it hurt too much to say yes out loud. He looked down, avoided my eyes, like a kid caught with stolen candy. Then, Amber just wanted to grab a drink after work. I didn't think it'd be a big... I held up my hand, not in anger, in mercy, because hearing the excuses was worse than hearing nothing at all. He swallowed, stared at the cake, the unlit candles, the wrapped box. "I should have told you," he muttered. And there it was. The softest betrayal. Not what he did, But what he didn't do, not the lie, but the withholding. He didn't kiss someone else. He didn't fall into bed with her, but he gave her something I hadn't seen in months. His time, his energy, his laughter, his presence. That's what broke me. Not an affair, but the casual way he shared the version of himself I used to know, and left me here, decorating an altar to a man who never intended to show up. I finally spoke. Just 3 words. You weren't there. He looked like he'd been slapped, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. And then the silence came again. That slow, suffocating kind. The kind that doesn't invite resolution, just survival. He didn't apologize, not really. He just stood there, with the same helplessness he always showed when it mattered most. And I finally stopped waiting, not for him, not for the right words. Just stopped. He sat down at the edge of the couch, hands folded, elbows on knees, like a man preparing for confession. I didn't join him. I stood, arms crossed loosely, not defensive. Just done. He let out a slow breath, then finally said it. It wasn't physical. The words landed like feathers. Light, but suffocating. I mean, we talk, we joke. She gets it. The work stuff. The stress. He wasn't looking at me. He was explaining to the air. It just started happening, little by little, and I didn't mean for it to become... He caught himself. Didn't finish that sentence. Because finishing it would be admitting it had become something. I waited, let him spiral. She listens, you know, like, really listens. And sometimes I'd come home and you were just tired, or busy, or distracted, and it felt easier. There it was, that tiny, cutting word. Easier. Not better, not deeper, not more meaningful, just easier. He looked up at me then, eyes full of something that might have been guilt, or just fear of what came next. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said. And it was almost laughable, because of course he didn't mean to. Hurt never needs to be intentional to be real. I asked one question, simple, quiet. Did you think of me at all? He blinked. Like the question didn't compute. When you sat across from her, when she lit that candle, when you laughed and clinked glasses and pretended it was all okay. Did I even exist in your head? He opened his mouth, closed it. That was my answer. I sat down across from him, not beside, across, like 2 parties in a negotiation that neither really wanted to win. Tell me the truth, I said. And he did. He admitted he didn't feel like he was doing anything wrong, because there was no kissing, no touching, just sharing, just comfort, just emotional oxygen. But that's what love is built on, the daily choosing, the invisible effort. And he'd been giving that to someone else for months, while I stood at home lighting candles and planning cake flavors, thinking I still had all of him. He looked at me then, saw it. The weight. The collapse. I'm sorry, he whispered. I nodded. But I didn't forgive him, not yet. Not for what he did, but for what he took from me. The certainty, the warmth, the version of us I thought we still were. And I knew. There was no card, no gift, no apology that could put that version back together. The next morning, the sun came in like it didn't know what had happened. Warm, gentle, golden. It lit up the remnants of the night before, the sagging balloon, the untouched gift box, the faint smell of wax and sugar still lingering in the air. He had slept on the couch, or at least, he had tried. I passed him on the way to the kitchen. Didn't speak, didn't look for eye contact, just turned on the kettle, pulled down a single mug, for myself. He sat up slowly, eyes heavy, regret curling at the edges of his face. But regret is useless without change, and I wasn't interested in watching him perform guilt. We didn't speak for a while, just the whistle of the kettle, the soft clink of ceramic on countertop. Then finally, he asked, "Are you okay?" I almost laughed, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "No, but I will be. That was the truth. Raw, unpolished, undeniable. He asked if I wanted to talk. I told him I'd already said what mattered. And the rest? Didn't need repeating. He offered to cancel his plans for the weekend, to stay in, to cook dinner, as if effort now could backfill the empty spaces behind me, as if presence today could erase absence yesterday. I told him no, told him I needed space, and I meant it. That afternoon, I took down the decorations, slowly, deliberately. I peeled off the tape from the little birthday banner I had spent an hour hanging straight, unpinned the photos from our last vacations, folded up the card I wrote, and tucked it into a drawer I knew I'd never open again. The cake? I threw it away. I couldn't eat something that had waited for a person who never came. And as I wiped down the counters, swept up the sprinkles I'd spilled in excitement the night before, I felt something shift. Not rage, not sorrow. Something quieter, more final. I realized I didn't want to fight for someone's attention anymore. Didn't want to compete with the ease of someone else's laughter. I deserved more than that. More than being someone's backup plan. More than being the partner you settle with after you're done escaping to someone who doesn't challenge you. He watched me from the doorway, like a man watching a storm he caused, and realizing he can't stop it. I didn't scream, didn't cry. I just looked at him and said, I'm not angry you shared pieces of yourself with her. I'm angry that you never noticed when you stopped sharing them with me. And then I walked out of the room, not to punish him, not to prove a point, but because I was done standing in rooms where I wasn't truly seen. Over the next few days, the silence in our home changed. It used to be filled with tension, unspoken things waiting to explode. Now it was emptier, like the house itself had exhaled, finally admitting that something was gone. He tiptoed around me, asked small questions, offered small comforts, brewed coffee I didn't drink, folded laundry I didn't wear. But it was too late for niceties, because the foundation had already shifted. He tried to talk once more, really talk. He stood in the doorway of our bedroom and said, I miss us. And I just looked at him, because what he missed wasn't us. He missed comfort. He missed not feeling like the bad guy. He missed being forgiven without really being sorry. But the woman standing in front of him? She wasn't looking for closure. She was looking for clarity. And I had it now. So I packed. Not everything, not in anger, but in quiet, thoughtful movements. A few shirts, a bag of books, my grandmother's necklace, the little things that still felt like me. I didn't slam drawers, didn't tear things down. I just chose. And that felt more powerful than anything I had done in months. He watched, didn't stop me. Maybe because he knew, deep down, he'd already left long before I did. I stayed with a friend for a few days, then a week, then longer. Each night, I felt myself slowly returning to the woman I had buried under all that effort, all that hope, all that planning for a man who never planned anything for me. I found peace in tiny things, long walks, books I had been meaning to read, laughing at something without checking to see if someone else found it funny too. And one day, without thinking, I deleted our shared calendar. The one I used to fill with birthdays, anniversaries, reminders to do something nice for him. I didn't cry when I did it. I felt free. That night, I made myself dinner, lit one candle, just for me. And as I sat there, music playing softly, I realized, for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting anymore, not for texts, not for apologies, not for someone to remember I exist. I was here, whole, quiet, and healing. And that blank page in the little birthday booklet I made for him, I tore it out. Not because the story ended there, but because I was finally ready to write a new one, where I wasn't the one left waiting in the dark. Some stories don't end with a door slamming, or a shouted goodbye, or even a final fight that leaves you gasping. Some stories just fade, quietly, like a song you didn't realize had stopped playing. That's how it was with us. No dramatic breakup post, no drawn-out argument in the rain. Just me. One suitcase, one set of keys on the counter, and a note that said nothing except, I loved you, but I love me now too. It took me a while to grieve the version of us I had held on to stop flinching when I passed the restaurant, to stop imagining how it could have gone if he had just chosen me. But here's the truth. We can't force someone to value what they've never learned how to hold. And love, real love, is not a game of convincing. It's showing up, daily, genuinely, even when it's hard. He didn't cheat with his hands, but he let his heart drift. And he didn't even try to anchor it back. That's what hurt. Not Amber, not the birthday, not the empty seat. It was the slow disappearance of intimacy, of honesty, of the man who used to look at me like I was the beginning of his day. Now, I look in the mirror and see someone I actually recognize again. Not a woman obsessed with planning the perfect evening, but a woman who knows her worth even when no one else is clapping for her. I still remember that night. The melted candles, the unopened cake, the playlist that never played. But I remember something else too. The silence that followed? It didn't destroy me. It delivered me. From waiting, from wondering, from forgetting my own name in someone else's story. And if you're still here, still listening, maybe this story found you for a reason. Maybe you've been the one with the wrapped gift in your hands, and no one there to open it. And if so, I hope you know this. You deserve more than showing up for someone who's already left. You deserve more than effort without reciprocity. And you are allowed to walk away without a villain in the room. Sometimes, we are simply done. Thank you for being with me tonight, for sitting in this quiet space, for breathing with me through the parts that stung. And if this story meant something to you, please leave a comment. Let me know where you were listening from, what time it was, how you felt when the candles didn't light, and how you feel now. Like, subscribe, but only if this kind of storytelling feels like home to you, because I'll be back with more stories that whisper what we're all too afraid to say out loud. Until then, turn off the screen, pull the blanket up just a little higher, and sleep softly. You are not alone. End of script. Good night.